Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to talk about a really powerful way of thinking that innovators like Elon Musk use to solve problems that seem totally impossible. It's called first principles thinking, and it's all about breaking free from the way things have always been done so you can build something brand new. To really wrap your head around this, let's start with a really simple analogy. Okay, picture two people in a kitchen. On one side, you've got the cook, and honestly, most of us, when we're facing a problem, we think just like a cook. We look for a recipe, right? A set of instructions somebody else already figured out. And look, that's great for copying something that already works, but you're never going to create a breakthrough that way.
But a true chef, they're different. They understand the fundamentals, how salt, fat, acid, and heat all play together. A chef can walk into pretty much any kitchen, see a pile of random ingredients, and just create something amazing, totally from scratch. And that right there, that's the crucial difference. The cook follows the recipe, the chef creates it.
So what is first principles thinking officially? Well, it's this practice of taking a really complex problem and just deconstructing it, breaking it all the way down to its most basic, elemental truths, the things you know for sure are true. It's about stripping away every single assumption until all you're left with is solid ground, and from there, that's where you start building your solution back up.
Think of it like this, okay? If I hand you a Lego house and I say, make it better, most people would probably just, move the furniture around. But someone thinking from first principles, they don't even see a house. They see a big pile of individual Lego bricks, and their first instinct is to take the whole thing apart. Because once you've got that pile of bricks, you're not stuck just building a better house. Now you can build a castle, or a bridge, or, a spaceship.
Okay, so this all sounds really great in theory, but how do you actually do it? This isn't just some abstract idea, it's a real practical method, and you can break it down into 3 simple steps.
All right, here's how it works. Step 1 is to identify. You've got to list out every single thing you think is true about the problem, all your assumptions. Then, step 2, deconstruct. This is where you challenge every single one of those assumptions. You poke holes in them until all you're left with are the fundamental truths that you can't break down any further. And finally, step 3 is to rebuild. You take those core truths and you start from scratch, building a totally new solution from the ground up.
Now, let's be honest. That second step, that's the really hard part. Our brains are literally wired to take shortcuts and just run on assumptions to save energy. It's how we survive. So how do you actually force yourself to dig deeper, to get past all that noise and find what's fundamentally true? Well, there are a couple of fantastic, really simple techniques for this.
One really powerful tool is called the 5 whys, and it's as simple as it sounds. You just act like a curious little kid and keep asking why over and over. Say, for example, your child tells you they're stuck on their homework. You ask, well, why are you stuck? They might say, I don't get the question. Okay, why don't you get it? You just keep digging like that until you find the real root of the problem. The other great method is Socratic questioning. This is where you basically become your own toughest critic, questioning your beliefs and demanding proof. You ask yourself things like, okay, what evidence do I actually have for this? Or could there be another explanation here?
And this is not just some thought experiment, okay? Let's look at how this exact method has been used in the real world to completely turn entire industries on their head.
For literally 50 years, the entire aerospace industry was built on one big assumption. Rockets are just crazy expensive. That's it. A launch cost of over $65 million was just a fact of life. It was the price you had to pay to get to space, and that was the recipe everyone in the business followed.
But Elon Musk just refused to follow that recipe. He asked a classic first principles question. What is a rocket actually made of? So he went and looked up the prices for the raw materials on the commodity markets, aluminum alloys, titanium, carbon fiber, and what he found was absolutely shocking. The actual physical stuff that makes up a rocket, it only accounted for about 2% of the final price tag.
And right there, that revealed the real problem. It wasn't the materials that were expensive. It was the ridiculously inefficient manufacturing process, plus the absolutely insane idea that you'd throw away this giant multi-million-dollar machine after using it just once. That one insight is what drove SpaceX to bring everything in-house, build from scratch, and pioneer reusable rockets, which ended up slashing launch costs by a staggering 90%.
And it's the exact same logic that was applied over at Tesla. The whole auto industry was just stuck. They assumed batteries were super expensive, over $600 per kilowatt hour, and that they always would be. But again, when they broke a battery all the way down to its raw ingredients on the market, cobalt, nickel, aluminum, they found this massive, massive gap between what everyone thought it cost and what it actually cost.
This insight is just so powerful because it shows you what's possible when you rebuild from scratch. See, once they knew the raw materials were actually cheap, the real problem became crystal clear. It was all about manufacturing. And that single realization drove their entire strategy to build these enormous gigafactories, completely reinventing the production process to finally make electric cars something that millions of people could actually afford.
And hey, it's not just about hardware. Think about Netflix. Back when they were just a DVD by mail company, they could have just tried to make small improvements, right? Like, how do we ship DVDs faster? But instead, they asked a first principles question. What do our customers really want from us? And the answer wasn't faster DVDs. The answer was instant entertainment. That one insight led them to basically kill their own business model and, in the process, invent the entire streaming revolution.
What's so cool about this is that this way of thinking, it's not just for building businesses. You can apply it to question and maybe even redesign the core structures of our society.
Let's talk about education for a second. This is something that's a huge part of life for so many families, right? Well, the traditional model is built on layers and layers of assumptions, that kids have to be grouped by age, that learning just means memorizing a bunch of facts from a textbook. But a first principles approach makes you stop and ask, wait a minute, what is the fundamental purpose of education here in the 21st century? And when you start answering that question, you get some really interesting, totally new models. You have schools like Muse in California that have basically thrown out the old textbooks. Instead, they're doing project-based learning that's built around what each kid is actually passionate about. So the goal isn't just to dump information into their heads, it's to help them develop skills like critical thinking and creativity. Teachers become more like guides instead of lecturers. And that's a really powerful idea for any parent who's thinking about what really matters for their child's future.
So why does any of this matter to you in your everyday life? Well, it means you have access to this exact same innovator's toolkit. You can use it to break down and solve the challenges you're facing, like right now.
I mean, you can apply this to your family's budget. Go through every single expense and ask, is this a fundamental need, or is it just an assumption about what we're supposed to be spending money on? Or say you're planning a home project. Instead of just assuming you need a bigger window, ask, what's the fundamental goal here? If the real answer is just more light, hey, maybe a skylight is a better, cheaper solution. It works for your health goals, and like we talked about, it's an amazing tool for getting to the real reason your kid might be struggling with a subject in school.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. So many of the rules we live by, in our jobs, in our homes, in our personal lives, they aren't really laws of nature. They're just assumptions. Assumptions we've all accepted without even questioning them. And when you learn to think from first principles, you get the power not just to solve problems, but to see those invisible walls and smash right through them, building a better reality from the ground up. So the only question left is, what rule in your life are you going to break first?